What if the only story you ever told was the one survival forced on you? Endless shifts, flipping burgers in a greasy diner, a toddler's cries echoing off peeling wallpaper, and a mountain of bills that buried your dreams deeper than the snowdrifts outside your frost-rimed window? In the gutted heart of Detroit's southwest side, where the ghosts of shuttered auto plants whispered of better days long gone, Elena Ramirez hunched over a scarred kitchen table at 2 a.m. On a bitter December night in 2020, her calloused fingers wrapped around a borrowed library pen that leaked ink like unspoken regrets. She was 22, a single mom to 2-year-old Sophia, scraping by on $1,800 a month that vanished like exhaust fumes into the $720 rent for their cramped one-bedroom on Vernor Highway, steps from the rusted skeleton of the old Fisher body plant. The air reeked of leftover diner grease clinging to her uniform, and the faint, sour tang of formula warmed on a hot plate because the microwave had died 2 paychecks ago. Elena's eyes burned from 10 hours on her feet at Dino's Diner on Grand River Avenue, dodging lewd catcalls from truckers and smiling through orders for bottomless coffee she couldn't afford herself. But tonight, as Sophia's soft snores drifted from the bassinet, improvised from a dresser drawer, Elena didn't collapse into the lumpy futon. She uncapped that pen and pressed it to a dog-eared notebook page, the words spilling out jagged and raw. A girl fighting factory shadows, mending a heart cracked by abandonment. It wasn't much, just a flicker against the dark. But in that moment, with the distant wail of a siren cutting the night, Elena felt the first tremor of something unbreakable stirring inside her. Her whole life hung on this. One more night of surrender, or the guts to rewrite the script fate had scrawled in red ink. Could a woman with no degree, no backup, and a kid who needed her whole tomorrow grab the pen and demand a different ending? Elena's roots tangled deep in the Rust Belt soil of Detroit. Born in the sticky heat of July 1998 to Rosa and Miguel Ramirez, a cleaning lady and a welder whose calloused hands built the frames of Fords until the 2008 crash slammed the plants shut like a coffin lid. They scraped by in a sagging brick row house on Livernois Avenue, where summer block parties masked the gnaw of unpaid utilities, and winter meant huddling under threadbare quilts when the heat flickered out. Miguel's shifts at the Rouge plant stretched 12 hours, 6 days a week, bringing home $2,200 before the layoffs hit. But by Elena's 10th birthday, the pink slips came, and with them, the vodka bottles clinking in the fridge like accusations. Rosa drowned the silence in shifts at downtown high-rises, leaving Elena to microwave Hot Pockets and dodge the neighborhood kids peddling trouble on corners scarred by bullet holes. School at Cody High was her escape, a fortress of chain link and metal detectors, where Elena devoured dog-eared copies of Maya Angelou in the library's back corner. Her 3.2 gigapascals, a quiet rebellion against the 40% dropout rate whispering her name. She scribbled stories in spiral notebooks bought with babysitting cash, heroines who outran pothole chases and pieced families from shards. Teachers called her a natural, but the halls buzzed with recruiters flashing gang tattoos like badges, and Elena learned quick to keep her head down, her dreams tucked like contraband in her backpack. Those dreams cracked wide open at 17, during senior year when Jake Harlan rolled into her life, like a lowrider on chrome rims, tall, tattooed, with a mechanic's grin and promises of road trips to California beaches she'd only seen in faded postcards. He worked the oil pits at a Gratiot Avenue garage, smelling of motor oil and mischief, and for a stolen summer, Elena believed in plot twists. They snuck kisses behind the Cody football bleachers, his hands rough on her skin, whispering futures where she'd write novels and he'd fix Bentleys. But 9 months later, in a sterile room at Sinai Grace Hospital on the 12th of September 2018, Sophia arrived screaming into the world, all 5 pounds of wrinkled fury and tiny fists, while Jake stared at the bassinet like it was a flat tire he couldn't patch. "I ain't ready for this," he muttered 2 weeks later, bolting for a job in Toledo that turned out to be a ghost gone, with her high school ring pawned for bus fare and the community college acceptance letter from Wayne State crumpled in the trash. Elena named her Sofia after the Spanish word for wisdom, hoping it stuck, but wisdom felt miles away as she traded cap and gown for a hairnet and name tag at Dino's. Starting at $9.25 an hour, plus tips that averaged $120 a week, if the lunch rush tipped heavy. Life settled into a brutal rhythm after that, a conveyor belt of double shifts that blurred days into a haze of sizzling patties and clattering plates. Mornings dawned at 4:30 a.m., with Sofia's coos pulling her from 4 hours of fractured sleep, then the bus rumbling 9 miles west to Dino's, where the fluorescent buzz overhead matched the throb in her temples. Afternoons meant nannying in Grosse Pointe, crossing the Detroit River Bridge into manicured lawns and houses with pillars like something out of a magazine, wiping noses for $12 an hour while the moms sipped Chardonnay and chatted college funds. Evenings were Aldi runs on Livernois, haggling $200 a month for rice, beans, and off-brand diapers, clipping coupons from the free press under the kitchen's single bulb. Rosa's voice echoed in her head during those quiet collapses. "Mija, stories are for girls with trust funds and time. You gotta baby stick to what's real." Elena swallowed it like bitter medicine, shoving her notebook under the mattress where Sofia's crayons couldn't reach, convincing herself that happy endings were for Hallmark cards, not Latinas from zip codes the maps forgot. But late at night, when the factory hum from the abandoned Packard plant droned like a distant lullaby, Elena would trace the scars on the table, coffee rings from all-nighters she never took, and feel that lie chafe like an ill-fitting uniform. Sofia's tiny hand would fist her sleeve then, tugging her back to the now, and Elena would rock her, humming Motown fragments, wondering if the spark under her ribs was just heartburn, or the ghost of a girl who once believed she could write the stars. As the fridge hummed its empty song one frost-laced February morning in 2021, with eviction notices yellowing on the fridge door, that spark coughed to life. Would she let it gutter out, or fan it into a flame that could warm them both? The winter of 2021 hit Detroit like a prizefighter's hook, and Elena reeled from the first punch before the bell even rang. Dino's, already limping from pandemic ghost shifts, slashed her hours in January after a snowstorm buried Grand River in drifts that kept the breakfast crowd home. Tips cratered from $150 a week to $60, scraps that barely covered the $240 electric bill when the pipes froze solid during a 3-day deep freeze, dipping to -10. Elena pawned Rosa's silver locket, her only heirloom from Abuela, at a Gratiot Avenue shop for $45, enough for a dollar store space heater that wheezed like an asthmatic uncle. But the chill seeped in anyway, turning their breaths to fog inside the walls. She skipped lunches at the diner, pocketing rolls to stretch the pot of arroz con frijoles that had to feed them both for days, her stomach twisting in knots tighter than the rubber bands holding Sofia's pigtails. "Mommy's just tired, corazon," she'd murmur when Sofia whimpered for more, but the lie tasted like ash. Spring thawed the streets but not the debts, and Sofia's ear infections, picked up from the understaffed daycare on West Vernor, flared like warning flares. What started as whimpers escalated to fevered nights, where Elena paced the apartment, Sofia's forehead scorching under damp washcloths, until a May midnight dash to the ER at Henry Ford Health System on the east side confirmed mastoiditis, a bone-deep infection that demanded IV antibiotics, and a $4,200 bill even after Medicaid clawed back half. Elena haggled on the phone 3 times a week from the diner's break room, her voice cracking like thin ice. "Please, ma'am, $500 down by Friday?" "We got nothing left." The clerk's monotone replies echoed her powerlessness, and eviction loomed when the landlord pounded the door for back rent, his meaty fist rattling the frame like Judgment Day. She juggled nannying gigs farther out, the bus ride stretching to 14 miles each way across the MacArthur Bridge, but the exhaustion carved hollows under her eyes, and Sofia's trusting gaze started to dim with the weight of it all. Desperation birthed a reckless gamble in June, when Elena unearthed that buried notebook during a midnight purge of the closet, its pages warped from humidity and neglect. Fueled by black coffee and Sofia's nap, She commandeered the library's clunky laptops at the Detroit Public Library's main branch on Woodward Avenue, hammering out a 50,000-word manuscript over stolen afternoons, a memoir of sorts, raw vignettes of Detroit grit, teen heartbreak, and a mother's unyielding grip on hope. It poured out like purge, the sting of Jake's goodbye, the burn of factory smoke in her lungs from childhood walks, the fierce love that glued her fractures. Emboldened, she queried agents 20 at first, then 30, printing queries on Dino's ancient Xerox at 5 cents a page, the machine jamming twice on her sweaty palm. Rejections trickled back like poison darts. Compelling voice but urban memoir markets flooded. Needs more polish, try workshops. By the 47th in September, a crisp email from a New York firm that read, "Not for us," Elena snapped, hurling the stack against the fridge where it snowed like defeated confetti. Tears, they blurred the ink as she scooped them up, Sophia toddling over with a crayon to smear a defiant rainbow across the title page. Laughter choked through sobs, but the doubt rooted deeper. She was just another stat. One of the 28% of Detroit single moms teetering below the poverty line. Her words as invisible as the potholes swallowing tires on Verno. The publishing world, with its ivy gates and bias toward relatable white voices, felt like a locked door she'd never pick. Then October brought the cruelest twist, Jake slinking back like a shadow at dusk, clean-shaven from 3 months in Wayne County Jail on a DUI rap. His eyes puppy-soft with AA promises and a fresh gig on Ford's assembly line. "I want to see my girl, Lena. Make it right." He begged outside Dino's after closing, rain slicking his leather jacket. Bone-tired and starved for connection, Elena cracked the door. Weekend visits at the park, Sophia's giggles bridging the chasm. Jake's hands steady as he pushed the swing. He chipped in $200 for Sophia's antibiotics. Cooked carnitas that filled the apartment with cumin warmth for the first time in years. Elena let hope creep in, pooling their paychecks into a joint account for a security deposit on a better place, dreaming of co-parenting scripts where villains redeem. But on a crisp November Eve, while she worked late nannying a birthday party in Grosse Pointe, 20 miles across the river, the bridge lights blurring through exhaustion's haze, Jake emptied it. $800 gone for a relapse bender, the bank alert buzzing her phone at 1 a.m. As she stumbled home to a locked door and a note. Needed it more, sorry. The landlord, tipped by a nosy neighbor, slapped the eviction notice that week, and by Thanksgiving, Elena and Sophia crashed on her cousin Marisol's couch in Delray, a 12-block hike from their old haunt, suitcases spilling stories onto the threadbare carpet. Rock bottom tasted like stale turkey and defeat. The notebook, mocking her from the pile, had chasing words, just cost her everything worth keeping. As sirens wailed that night, Elena clutched Sophia close, the factory hum mocking her whispers. Burn it all, or rise from the ashes. Huddled on Marisol's lumpy sectional, with Sophia's fevered breaths sinking to the tick of a wall clock that marked lost hours, Elena hit pause on surrender for the first time in months. The library became her bunker starting that December. A 10-block trudge through slush to the Woodward Avenue branch, where fluorescent hum and free Wi-Fi offered sanctuary from the chaos. There, amid stacks of dog-eared bestsellers that taunted her rejections, she met Miss Hargrove, a steel-haired retiree with cat-eye glasses and a voice like gravel under tires, who'd shelved tomes for 30 years and spotted raw talent like blood in water. "Girl, your scribbles got bite," Hargrove grunted after eavesdropping on Elena's frustrated mutters over a stalled paragraph, sliding her a dog-eared copy of Bird by Bird. But bite without teeth is just noise, revise, or rot. It wasn't coddling. Hargrove's feedback scorched. "This heartbreak scene. Too telly, show the grease on his hands when he leaves." But it lit a fuse. Elena recommitted, carving 2 hours post-Sophia's bedtime from 9 p.m. sharp, even if it meant forgoing Marisol's offered Chardonnay or the siren call of Netflix numbness. The grind reshaped her like clay under a sculptor's thumb, 18 months of ritual that blended sweat and setbacks. Morning still dawned, brutal bust to Dino's at dawn, grease tang clinging like a second skin, but evenings transformed into forge time. She'd brew dollar store tea in a chipped mug, the steam curling like factory smoke, and pound 500 words minimum into the laptop, tracking progress in a spiral ledger. Day 47. 1,200 words. Scrap the factory chapter. Rewrite tomorrow. Failures ambushed like potholes. A February flu sidelined Sophia for a week, derailing a self-imposed deadline and leaving Elena staring at a blank screen, self-doubt hissing that she was fool's gold. Another gut kick came in April 2022, when Hargrove pushed her to enter a local open mic at the Car Center on the east side, a 15-mile trek via 2 buses, and the crowd's polite claps for her excerpt on abandonment felt like pity, not fire. Too raw for prime time, a fellow reader sneered post-set. And Elena biked home in the rain, notebook sodden, tempted to chuck it into the Detroit River. But Hargrove's voice echoed, "Raw's your weapon, not your weakness." She iterated 3 full drafts by summer's end, 50,000 words honed to 42,000, channeling the theft's sting into scenes that bled authenticity. Sophia's crayon rainbows woven as motifs of messy hope. The notebook evolved too, pages no longer stained with despair, but layered with revisions in 3 colors of ink, a testament to persistence's quiet alchemy. Small wins trickled, a library patron's nod. That bit about the swing? Hit home. Or Hargrove's rare. Not half bad. By October 2022, as fall leaves skittered like discarded queries on Woodward, Elena prepped for the Motown Writers Circle contest. Hargrove had unearthed a $5,000 prize for unpublished voices from the heartland. The deadline loomed 30 days out, a sprint that demanded stripping her soul bare on paper. But as she typed the final excerpt under the library's flickering desk lamp, doubt gnawed. Expose this unvarnished heart, or bury it safe. Ms. Hargrove's flyer for the Motown Writers Circle had landed in Elena's lap like a dare from the universe, taped to the library bulletin board amid flyers for AA meetings and food banks. Its bold print screaming, "Unheard voices, $5,000 for your truth." It was the 15th of November 2022. And with Sophia, bundled in a cousin's hand, me-down coat against the early chill, Elena snatched it during a rare solo library run, her pulse thumping like bass from a passing lowrider. 30 days. "You're crazy," Marisol laughed over pozole that night, but Hargrove's eyes narrowed the next evening under the library's vaulted ceilings. "Crazy's what got you this far. Polish that beast, or it's just another dust gatherer." The sprint ignited. Elena quit nannying cold to claw back hours, funneling the $12 an hour void into fevered revisions that blurred nights into dawn. She dissected the manuscript like a mechanic under the hood, axing flab for punch. The Jake betrayal scene sharpened to a knife edge, dialogue crackling with the exact lilt of his Ohio drawl. Sophia's fevers rendered in sensory storm the acrid bite of hospital antiseptic, the IV's cold pinch mirroring her isolation. By day 20, an excerpt on single mom resilience leaked online via the library's writers group forum, a quiet share that snowballed through Detroit mom blogs and Facebook groups for Rust Belt parents, racking 2,000 views in a week. Comments flooded. "This is me at 3 a.m. Finally, a voice that sees the swing sets and the swings." Elena's phone buzzed with notifications during a Dino's lull, her hands trembling as she read, "Grease forgotten on the counter." The entry shipped December 15, a PDF upload at 11:59 p.m. from Hargrove's home computer after the library locked down for holidays. Weeks dragged like January slush. Elena's shifts ramped back to full to fund Christmas gifts from the dollar store until the 10th of March 2023, when the email pinged, "Congratulations! Elena Ramirez first place. Motown Writers Circle." $5,000 wired to her account the next day, enough to snag a deposit on a fresh start. But the real jolt came 2 weeks later. Her agent called from a Chicago boutique firm, poached by the viral buzz. "Your excerpt's got legs. Raw, real, the kind of grit publishers crave but rarely chase." The voice crackled over speakerphone, Sophia babbling in the background like punctuation. A $15,000 advance followed in April, modest but monumental. trading the diner's sizzle for freelance gigs, editing local zines at $20 an hour. Elena wept in Hargrove's office that afternoon. The older woman's pat on the back, rough as sandpaper. "Told you, teeth now." The factory hum outside the library windows shifted in her ears, from dirge to drumbeat, as she traded grease-stained aprons for query-clean copies. But with the contract's fine print staring back one more polish before ink dried, Elena's gut twisted. Could she deliver the full roar, or would the world still tune out her tune? The advance burned a hole in Elena's pocketbook, not for luxuries, but lifelines first. A $1,000 security deposit on a two-bedroom in Corktown by May 2023. A revitalized pocket of Detroit, where breweries hummed alongside murals of Motown legends. The rent $1,200 a month, but with heat that worked, and a park where Sophia could chase pigeons without dodging syringes. She quit Dino's cold that June, the boss's gruff, "Good luck, kid," masking the ache of goodbye to the counter that had cradled her elbows through storms. Freelance trickled steady $500 here for a lifestyle piece on single moms in the Free Press. $300 there for ghostwriting, a local activist's op-ed enough to cover preschool at the community center on Michigan Avenue. $400 a month for Sophia's ABCs and art smocks that didn't come from thrift bins. Elena's days reshaped. Mornings walking, Sophia, the 8 blocks to drop off, the river breeze off the Detroit waterfront carrying hints of spring lilacs. Afternoons at a Corktown coffee shop with reliable Wi-Fi, revising under Hargrove's remote red pen via email threads that pinged like lifelines. The memoir, titled Scribbles Against the Shadows, dropped the 15th of July 2023. A slim paperback with a cover of cracked concrete blooming wildflowers, launched at a modest reading in the library's auditorium. 50 seats filled with neighbors, a smattering of bloggers. Hargrove front row, with a thermos of skepticism. Elena's voice shook reading the opening. The room thick with the scent of fresh ink and rain-damp coats. But the Q&A ignited. Hands shot up from women, clutching purses like shields, sharing their own buried notebook. Word of mouth rippled outward, Rust Belt style shared at Corktown barbecues, passed in factory break rooms from Hamtramck to Dearborn, hitting 10,000 copies sold in the first 6 months through indie presses hungry for heartland truths. Royalties tallied $75,000 by December, a windfall that funded Wayne State night classes starting January 2024. Elena enrolling in creative writing with scholarship scraps from the prize money. Her syllabus, a roadmap out of survival's loop. Sophia bloomed 2.5 now. With braids Elena learned to French from YouTube, enrolling in ballet at the Detroit Repertory Theater for $150 a semester, her leaps a mirror of the freedom Elena had clawed. The notebook, once contraband, became a talisman. Elena toted it to signings, flipping to crayon-stained pages for fans who traced their fingers over the marks, eyes wet with recognition. Inner shifts ran deeper, doubt's hiss faded to a murmur, replaced by a quiet command. Her voice, flawed and fierce, mattered because it echoed the unspoken chorus of the overlooked. Mentorship bloomed reciprocal. She volunteered at the library twice monthly. Hargrove's gravel voice now harmonizing with Elena's smoother timbre, guiding wide-eyed 20-somethings through their first queries. As fall 2024 painted Corktown gold, with Sophia's laughter bouncing off the new apartment's sunlit walls, Elena stood taller. The factory ghosts outside her window no longer haunts but harmonies. But sharing this blueprint with strangers at her first out-of-town reading in Chicago, a train ride 280 miles west, stirred a new ache. Could her scars truly light paths for others still stumbling in the dark? Elena's reflections came in stolen silences, like the hush after a storm when the air hangs crisp and new. Enrolled at Wayne State that January 2024, she'd sit in an undergrad lounge overlooking the quad, notebook open but pen idle, tracing the arc from Werner despair to Corktown calm. The false belief her mom slurred, that stories belonged to the silver spoon set, had shattered not with a bang, but the steady drip of discipline. Those 500-word nights, the 47 rejections recycled into resolve, Hargrove's barbs honing her edges. "You weren't born for the background, Mija," she'd whisper to her reflection now, the woman staring back with fewer hollows, eyes alight with the wisdom Sophia embodied. Gratitude wove through it all, a tapestry of faces and places. Rosa, sober, 2 years now, and beaming at launch night. Jake, a distant co-parent shadow, who sent cards but no more. Most of all, Detroit itself, the unyielding river that carved canyons, the factory hum that pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the scars. It taught her adversity wasn't the villain, but the ink, messy and indelible, turning fractures into prose that healed the writer first. Systemic walls, the publishing gatekeepers who skimmed urban queries, the poverty stats that scripted failure crumbled not by rage alone, but persistence laced with community. The mom groups that amplified her excerpt, the library's free fortress against isolation. Her evolution whispered a truth to the mirror. From reactor to architect, survivor to sage, she'd learned the greatest plot twist was claiming the pen mid-sentence. For the marginalized dreamers still flipping burgers or dodging bills, Elena's mantra bloomed simple. Your voice isn't too small, the world's just been hard of hearing. Start with one line today, the one that scares you most, and watch the page turn. As she jotted that in her ledger during a March 2024 lecture, the prof's words on narrative agency, blurring with her own, a fresh spark flickered. What if this wisdom, bottled, could ripple wider, to forums and stages where others waited to hear they weren't alone? Sunset gilds the Corktown skyline on the 18th of September 2025. As Elena Ramirez perches at a scarred wooden table in the local bookstore on Michigan Avenue. Not unlike the one that birthed her first scribbles, but now ringed with stacks of her second book, a sequel weaving mentorship tales from reader letters. Sophia, 7 and gangly with ballet grace, beams beside her, tiny fists clutching a fresh notebook gifted by a fan. The pair's laughter cutting the murmur of signers queuing with dog-eared copies. Elena's pen glides now, not borrowed but hers, bold lines inscribing, "Keep writing your truth," inside covers that have sold 50,000 more since the first's echo. The factory hum drifts faint through the open door, a rhythmic nod to origins reclaimed, while the Detroit River's distant gleam mirrors the twinkle in eyes that once wept over rejections. She pauses for a wide-eyed teen in braids, handing over a page from her original notebook, crayon rainbow, intact. "This mess, it's where magic starts. Yours is waiting." The girl nods, fierce, and Elena feels the arc close, not an end, but an invitation, the air thick with possibility's warm ache. What's your first line? Grab that pen gathering dust, whisper it to the page before the stars claim the sky. Your story's not written till you do. Comment day 1 below if this is your spark. Let's rewrite together.